Hello and welcome to week 19. All right, so today we're going to continue our journey into major sevenths. We're going to look at 3 more of those. We're going to keep looking at triplets in our rhythm warm-up, and we will do a little bit of review on the triplets because it usually takes about 3 to 4 weeks before we really get comfortable with them. All right, so don't worry about that. And then we will also look at a piece of sight reading that I created for us today, and I really wanted to explore the major 7 sound. So I made something that I call a non-harmonic or a lightly harmonic composition where we're really just exploring the sound of the major 7. We'll talk about that. But anyways, let's head over to the drum and get warmed up. Okay, here we are with our week 19 rhythm warm-up. This is the second week that we're going to be looking at triplets. Now, I find with my students that it usually takes 3 to 4 weeks before they really become comfortable with triplets, so we're going to go over the very basics of this really quickly before we get into the actual exercise. All right, so let's start by just looking at the polyrhythm, okay? Now remember, the correct feeling for this is not difficult, not difficult. It's got that round 3 feeling. Whereas you can play the same 4 syllables, but with the incorrect feeling where it's too straight, like this. Not difficult, right? So the correct way is a round feel, and the incorrect way is a binary feel, okay? Now remember, we are going to be hearing the metronome on the upbeat, which is the fi syllable of not difficult. We'll start with the first sticking, the together, right, left, right, which means that the triplet will be in the right hand, the 8th note will be in the left hand, the metronome will be at 40 BPM, and that will represent the upbeat. Here we go. Not difficult, not difficult. Together, right, left, right, together, right, left, right. There we go. All right, let's try it the other way. Let's look at the second sticking, together, left, right, left, which means that the triplet will now be in the left hand and that the 8th notes will be in the right hand. Here we go. Not difficult, not difficult. Together, left, together, left, right, left. Excellent. Okay, the last thing we're going to do with this before we do the exercise is we're going to play just the triplet, hands together, which means we are not going to actually play the fi syllable, but we will hear it as the metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we have it. All right, let's take a look at the exercise. We're going to take a look at line 1. We're going to keep the metronome at 40 BPM, and it is going to be the upbeat. And in fact, the metronome will remain the upbeat for the rest of today's warm-up. Let's give it a try. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hands together, top line. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. All right, excellent. Let's take a look at line 2. We'll speed the metronome up a little bit to 45 BPM, and like I said, it will remain as the upbeat. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hands together, top line. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. You see, when you get it just right and the triplet lines up with the metronome, you can almost hear it click together. Now, I'm not claiming to be perfect, right? I'm doing this exercise for myself as well, because you can never practice these things too many times, right? And there are certain times where I get it and I'm like, ooh, that one just clicked right together. And then there are some where it's like, oops, that second triplet was a little fast, or something like that, right? But that's the spice of life, and that's what we're looking for in these exercises, is to experience those and try to make those corrections while you are still in the flow, right? We never want to stop when we're doing this, unless it's a complete train wreck. We want to practice making corrections in the flow, because that's what music is all about. All right, now, in case you were missing eighth note syncopation, the last two lines are going to throw in a little bit of eighth note syncopation with these triplets, all right? So let's take a look at line 3. Let's speed our metronome up to 50 BPM. It's still on the upbeat. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Top line. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. All right. And now, last but not least, let's take a look at line 4. The metronome will be sped up to 55 BPM, still on the upbeat. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Switch your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there we have it. All right. Triplets are a lot of fun, but like I said, if you're still having trouble, don't worry, because it usually takes 3 to 4 weeks before we really start to be comfortable with them. So happy practicing, keep it up, and let's head back on over to the piano. Okay, let's talk about major sevenths. So the first thing I want to show you is that I did make a diagram that shows all 12 keys written out in their root position going around the circle of fifths, okay? So if you were to make a diagram like this for yourself, that would be a good idea. Or if you'd like this one, you can find it on my website, pianodojo.com, where you can find all the show notes that you ever see on this series. But last week we went over C and G major 7 as well as F major 7. And today we'll be looking at D major, A major 7, and E major 7. Let's remember that the drill involves doing the inversions with the right hand, the inversions with the left hand, the inversions hands together, but just one chord, all right? Then we're gonna do the right hand scale, the left hand chord, the right hand chord, the left hand scale. It sounds like a lot, but let's get it knocked out. Let's get started with D major. First, we're gonna do the inversions with our right hand. Now we're going to look at our left hand. Now let's do hands together, but one chord. So my left hand will start with the do and the mi, and the so and the ti will be in my right hand. And then finally, we'll do the chord in our left hand and the scale in our right hand. And the chord in our right hand and the scale in our left hand. There we go. Let's move on to A major 7. We'll begin with our inversions in the right hand. Inversions in the left hand. Hands together, one chord. Chord in the left hand, scale in the right hand. Chord in the right hand, scale in the left hand. Excellent. And finally, let's take a look at E major 7, starting with the inversions in the right hand. Inversions in the left hand. One chord, inversions with both hands together. Chord in the left hand, scale in the right hand. And chord in the right hand, scale in the left hand. You see, once you get going, it doesn't really take that long. However, if you are having any kind of trouble with this, the best thing to do is to take it slow. If you need to do less chords and scales per week, if you need to keep it to 1 or 2, that's totally fine as well, right? These videos are compressed. We're getting a lot of information into one YouTube series, right? But take your time with these because these are important shapes to absorb. All right, let's take a look at today's reading. This is a piece that I created with major 7 called Clouds of Major 7. You see, the thing about music is we've spent a lot of time thinking about harmony lately and creating pieces of music that function with an underlying logic of harmony. 5 to 1, 2 to 5 to 1, secondary dominance of the 5, right? And the thing is that that's all well and great, but sometimes music can also be composed in a different way. So for example, Clouds of Major 7 is really meant to just close your eyes and let your imagination take over as you listen to these sounds. So when I close my eyes and I let my imagination take over, I played the major 7 chord, and I thought, clouds, right? And so what I'm attempting to do here is to paint a picture of clouds, but instead of using paint, I'm using only major 7s, right? So there will be no functionality here. Now, I did mention that there is light functionality, and that's because the major 7s that I chose are closely related. I chose C major 7, F major 7, and G major 7, right, from last week. Now we will see some guest appearances from chords that we're studying this week. We have A major 7, and we're gonna have a D major 7, right? But they're all major 7s. And the only thing that's harmonic about this is that these chords are closely related to each other on the circle. In this piece, most harmonies are gonna last for 2 measures each, all right? So we're gonna start with C major 7, all right? And that's gonna last 2 measures until we get to F major 7, which will also last 2 measures. All right, continuing on, just as I said, we're gonna see our G major 7. That will last 2 measures, and finally, it will bring us back to C major 7. So there is a little bit of harmonic, logic going on, but it's nothing as strong as 1s and 5s and 2s and things like that, okay? Now, when I wrote this large arpeggio that goes up the keyboard, I'm really stacking major 7s on top of each other. So what we have is a C major 7, then we have a G major 7, and then we have an A major 7. All right, now as we can see, we're going to keep the pattern going, but in a different register of the piano. We have our C major 7. We've added some space, we've added some rests in there, right? Because clouds have spaces in them. They're not always just purely plastered across the sky. Here we have our F major 7, G major 7. Okay, you caught me. I used a G dominant 7, okay? And then we get back to our C major 7. All right, here we're gonna do our cool little stack of chords. We have the F major 7 stacked with the C major 7. And on top of that, we're gonna have our D major 7. And then this last one is exactly like the one we saw earlier, where we have C major 7, G major 7, and finally A major 7. And notice at the very end, we do have a small walk up back to C's. Okay, so we've got just big C's there with that little half step up to the C. All right, so like I said, don't be afraid of ledger lines because it looks ugly, but it's a simple concept, returning to C. Now, because this is a more expressionistic piece, I did put a little bit more shapes in here to kind of explain some phrase making. So one thing that you'll notice is that, let me move these chords out of the way just a little bit, and we can see that we have some pedal markings, okay? So this is the rightmost pedal on the piano, which is not the sustain pedal, it is the damper pedal. It does cause a sustain effect, but we call it the damper pedal because the dampers inside of the piano that keep the strings from vibrating are all lifted up when you press that pedal down, and that's what lets the notes continue to ring out when you keep that down, okay? So this is pedal markings. This is instructing us to press the pedal down. This is instructing us to lift the pedal back up, and then To save ink, to save space and declutter the page, I put sim. And what that means is that I would like you to continue in a similar fashion, right, for the rest of the piece unless I indicate it anywhere else. All right, that just helps us declutter it. Also, I did put a phrase marking, right? We can crescendo and decrescendo, and that doesn't just mean with dynamics, it also means with tempo. You can push the tempo and pull the tempo, and I even put some expressionistic words, free as the wind. This piece is about clouds, right? So it's not super structured, it kind of just goes with the flow, that's all right. I put some reminder pedal markings in here, and I even gave us an extra long one, right? Now everything in here is subject to interpretation, okay? It's an impressionistic piece. It's meant to look like clouds, so I'm not going to be super picky about how it's played, as long as it's beautiful and cloud-like, all right? So without further ado, let's try to play this. Whenever we are doing the hands together, one inversion between one chord, that's kind of how we started this piece out, all right? And because of that, I'm going to jump into this piece hands together. We're not going to break it up hands separately because it really does rely on you putting your hands together, as you can see. Now, rhythmically speaking, you can see how this lines up. And I left the rests in this first measure so that you could be definitely sure of how everything is supposed to line up. But honestly, I really felt like those rests cluttered up the page. So once you get the idea, it's the same thing throughout the whole piece. And so I hid the rests, but it's still that back and forth motion, all right? So if you need to get the rhythm solidified, look at the first measure, and then just for the sake of being not so cluttered, it remains the same, but just without all those rests typed in throughout the piece. All right, there we have it. Nice work. Now remember, if you'd like to purchase any of this sheet music, any of these diagrams, any show notes, and much more, you can check out my website, pianodojo.com. Until next week, happy practicing.